Physique assessment. The question our expert panel addresses is there a gold standard method of assessing body composition? Associate Professor Gary Slater.
Is there a gold standard method for body composition? I'd say there is, yes, cadaver analysis, but it's not something I'd suggest you apply for any of your clientele. It's also something you can only ever do once. So let's look at what else is available. There's a whole range of 2-compartment models that provide information on fat mass and fat-free mass. But the reality is that each of those, every single one, makes some assumptions associated with it. And you know what happens when you assume? You make an ass out of you and me. What we want to be able to try and do is to minimise the implications of those assumptions. With any research that I do for the university that I work for, where body composition measures are very important to the outcomes, we'll actually start to use what we call a multi-compartment model, where we use data from several techniques combined to minimise that noise of the assumptions that are made. If we can minimise the assumptions, then we get a much more reliable assessment of body composition. So that could be, as an example, where we use the bod pod to be able to get a measure of body density. Now, to convert that into composition, we make some assumptions in regards to the water content in the body. We don't need to make that assumption. We've got techniques available, deuterium dilution, for example, as a reference method for being able to actually measure total body water content. Similarly, with the bod pod, we make an assumption in regards to the bone mineral content. We don't have to make that assumption. We'll go and get a DEXA scan to truly measure the bone mineral content. And so here we're combining data from the bod pod, from the DEXA, and from your deuterium dilution to come up with this multi-compartment model, which is probably our modern day best practice method.
Dr. Kagan Ducker.
The gold standard is actually cadaver assessments, so using people after they've passed away and actually breaking them down into their individual components to figure out exactly what they're made of, which obviously has its limitations. What we generally consider to be gold standard is a combination of techniques, so using something like DEXA in combination with bod pod, or using different methods to add up the compartments or the different breakdowns that we can have in the body so we can have a relatively accurate idea of what you're made of.
Professor Tim Ackland.
No, there's not. DEXA is often spoken of as a gold standard measure for body composition, but there are still assumptions and interpolations made in the final measure. MRI also has a number of limitations as well. Probably the best method we have is the 4-component model, which uses a combination of other methodologies in order to come up with the final body composition analysis.
Associate Professor Masaharu Kagawa.
Well, this is very difficult to say because for measuring human beings or living human beings, all measurement techniques do have several assumptions involved, and therefore it is difficult to say particular one method as the gold standard. Instead, it would be nice if you can measure several methods, utilize several methods to one person. Then that way we can apply what we call 4-compartment models or 5-compartment models, which actually increases the accuracy of estimation of body composition.
For further information on physique assessment, see our book, Best Practice Protocols for Physique Assessment in Sport, published by Springer.